Well, in July of this year, we went to the Porcupine Abyssal Plain Observatory, which is just here, which is a location that we've been studying for the last 20 years. We have a large amount of equipment there, which records the status of the ocean. There were two main aims of the cruise. The first was to service the equipment which we've got there, which sends data every few hours by satellite to land. And the second was to take samples of sediment with the animals within it and of the water column, which we can't do autonomously using this observatory. The most dramatic activity, I guess, was replacing the main mooring. These are called moorings. They have a big float, a big yellow float on the surface, which is about 6 meters high, which is actually owned and run by the UK Met Office. And that records a whole load of meteorological information: wind speed, humidity, temperature. Underneath that, we have a chain about 30 meters long, and it's at that point that we have a sensor frame which carries a whole load of oceanographic sensors to measure the concentration of microscopic plants, the carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, the nutrient concentrations, and collect some microscopic animals as well. Beneath that, there's some 6,000 meters of rope going down to the anchor, which sits on the bottom and holds the whole thing stationary. The buoy is there as part of a network of observatories around the Atlantic and into the Mediterranean, which is called FIXO3, that we coordinate here. And this is to provide the big picture of the way the oceans are changing in time. One of the particularly important aspects is to understand and measure the downward flux of material. That is, how much material is lost from the surface of the ocean to the deep sea floor, because this is what takes carbon out of the upper ocean and therefore encourages the oceans to take up carbon dioxide. So in order to do that, we have a number of approaches, and one of them is to collect material in what are called sediment traps. Now here we have a sediment trap which drifts over a period of a few days, collecting material in these cylinders, these perspex cylinders. This collects material for short periods of time on which we can do various types of experimentation. These were actually owned and operated by the University of Bremen. Further down in the water column, we have additional sediment traps which also collect material, and these collected over a period of 1 year, collecting samples every 2 weeks and preserving them until we go back a year later. And this is at 3,000 meters depth. So when material gets into those sediment traps at 3,000 meters, they are basically lost from the upper part of the water column for hundreds of years. An additional way we look at the particles that are responsible for this flux is with the marine snow catcher, which is, marine snow is a term used to describe the principal vehicles by which material sinks, large particles that you can see with the naked eye. So we collect these large particles in this 100-litre water bottle. The top 95 litres are then removed, and we end up with a small chamber which has these large particles sitting on the bottom. And we can then do experimentation, we can make observations of these large particles. The ultimate fate of a lot of this material is the sea floor itself at 5,000 meters depth. And this is a box corer. It's called a box corer because it's shaped like a box. And what this does is to collect a sample of the sediment, and we can then look at the chemical composition of the sediment, but most importantly, we can look at the animals which are sitting on top of the sediment. We can collect them using forceps, and we can then identify what they are and what they're feeding on. And what they're feeding on is, of course, the material which has settled down from the overlying water. This was a really successful cruise. The PAP observatory that we've been working at is probably one of the most sophisticated and well-developed observatories in the world. We hope next summer to be going back on Discovery. We will refurbish the observatory, service all the sensors, put it down for another year, and in addition to that we'll be doing various types of observations of the particles, of the animals that are living there, which can't be observed autonomously by these sensors.